They called him the Diesel.
Crank up that diesel. Let's go.
He leaned across the table and he goes, "You need to get me back there. I'll make you famous."
And to Riggins, good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone.
It's Riggo the Diesel.
Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. However you're consuming us at this particular point. This is episode 40 of Riggo the Diesel. I'm John Riggins, Larry Michael, your voice of the Washington Redskins. And Larry, we are not in the best of shape this morning, but we're going to power through this, right?
Yeah, there are physical and technical ailments.
I wasn't going to get into the technical, but we can deal with our physical ailments. You have a bad back.
Yeah.
I got a bad everything.
I wonder what traction would be like.
Traction would help you,
You
probably.
were famous for the traction the week of a game.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, I think it was 83 or 84. I remember when the first time I went into it, it was after the Green Bay game, the Monday night game, the 14-2 year, where we got beat by 1.40. What was it, 47-46 or 48-47 up in Green Bay? 48-47. Stan Levine, the late Stan Levine, was the team orthopedic surgeon, and I told him my back was bothering me because it had been up until that point. So he checked me into Sibley Hospital. And I was in traction for a couple, 3 days, and then, came back and kept on playing. But what I wanted to bring up was this PMR of what I have is something that really is extremely debilitating. And it reminded me this morning of way back when this back injury that I had got so bad, Larry. It's going to be hard for you to believe this probably, but it was so bad I actually contemplated retirement.
Wow.
But it was the same deal. What we're faced with, why we're here this morning, I think, is because I don't know. There's something about. I guess you got a certain amount of I don't know if it's pride. I don't want to say pride because I don't think that's necessarily a good word to use. But somehow you just feel like you're obligated. You got to be there. But I remember because it was after we'd won the Super Bowl, and you kind of felt like, and it's really kind of it's actually kind of narcissistic, if I dare say. But you think of all the fans that you would let down by saying,
What's wrong with that? I think that's cool. That's good motivation.
I don't know.
The obligation of the people that cheer you on.
Like I'm assuming that they're just going to be heartbroken. They
would be.
Damn.
Back then, on that magical year with the Super Bowl run, Larry, tell me you remember this. When he would be in traction leading into the playoffs and the playoffs, they would cut in on the local news. I don't know if Max Robinson or Murray Bunyan, they would cut in
Gordon
from
Peterson
Hospital.
There'd be a report.
In the middle of the afternoon,
I remember that.
break in a general hospital that was big.
Riggo in traction.
Riggo in traction, a special update.
I wonder though, when you're in traction, you're in a supine position.
Yep.
Right, and your legs or something's being stretched by weights.
Well, yeah, they put you this pulleys and they put a certain amount of weight on it, and they had a little harness that they put around your waist. They're trying to stretch your back out.
But can you drink in that position?
Absolutely.
You can make
In fact, it's my favorite position to drink from, and I learned it at Sibley Hospital. Beer after beer. I mean, if Coach Gibbs would have saw me, he would have said, "This has got to stop." He'd have had a guard on my door.
Yeah, why does he like traction so much?
Yeah, I know. Well, he's a free day.
I was always saying,
Stan,
I think I feel back. Let's go to Sibley.
I could use
Had to do that. Anyway,
use a drink.
What do we got here?
You know what? We're in the midst of OTAs.
Yes.
And right now, today, as we tape this edition, you say 39?
40.
40.
We'll make it 40.
Sorry.
We'll make it 40.
Edition 40 is happening. We're taping this. And the Redskins have day 4 of OTAs. They're going to go inside. And again, if you don't know what OTAs are, organized team activities, much as a regular practice, but there's no hitting. Right, Gabe? That's exactly right. So they're inside today, day 4. Tomorrow will be day 5. And you know what comes after day 5?
Day 6.
Day 6. And then there's the mini camp next week, which is the mandatory mini camp, where you will see, if you are here or watch, Redskins.com or wherever you consume your video, you're going to see Trent Williams. I'm thinking he's going to be here. It's mandatory, along with Adrian Peterson and Josh Norman. Then unusual schedule shift this year, another set of OTAs the week after next, the week of June the 10th. That's never happened since I've been here.
So they'll go to what, like June 5th or something like that? Or I mean June 15th?
Yes. 13th. 12th, 13th.
And then that's it until they show up in Richmond?
That's it until July the 24th. They report 25th is the first open practice to the public. So with that, we're going to have our eye on the quarterbacks a lot of the time. Over
Well, I
these
mean, I
next
think
few
that
months.
really, Larry, when you think about it, based on where the Redskins drafted this year, their first pick was a quarterback. I think that, you look at it last year, they brought in Alex Smith, and I think that even though Alex was at practice, last week?
He was at practice. It's just good to see him walking around, and he was
guy.
walking around.
Good guy.
He's got a long way to go, but he is. It's very, very inspirational to see him out there.
But the reality is that Alex Smith, I mean, let's look at like I said, the reality of the situation. Alex Smith will not play for this team again. And the reason I say that is if Dwayne Haskins is your guy, where does Alex Smith fit in? He might be a backup. I don't know how this works, contractually speaking.
Au contraire.
Really?
Au contraire.
Okay, good.
He could play again. Conventional.
As a starter?
Well, we don't know how this year is going to turn out. It's a week-to-week business. So
that's true.
But, of course, you're going with the odds with your statement. I believe you're
my point
going
is,
with the logic.
Yeah, well, who's the town really excited about right now?
Dwayne Haskins.
And so, it's his job to lose, more or less. Alex Smith's coming off a serious injury, and the reality of him being able to make up all this ground to a young kid who's got a gun for an arm.
He does.
I mean, I'm telling you what, let me put it this way, Larry. It's not a good thing if Alex Smith plays for this team again. I'm going to put it that way.
Yes,
I hate to say it, but I think the reality is you don't really.
I think that is a reality. You draft somebody in the first round, and you're going to want him to play. You didn't draft him to have him sit. But in regard to Alex never playing another down in the Redskins uniform, I think that's possible, probably, likely, somewhere along the way. But if all things turn out the way the organization would want, I would think, drafting a player number in the first round, you're going to want him to play for many, many more years.
Yeah.
And where does that put Case Keenum?
Well, I think that, obviously there's so many variables going on here, Larry, and I would say right now, you've got a lot of potential in your first-round draft pick in Dwayne Haskins. You have Case Keenum, who's as you described, and I don't know him at all, but I've seen him. Obviously, he did some miraculous things for Minnesota 2 years ago.
Sure did.
Got him into the playoffs late in the season. They handed him the reins, and he took off and played very well for that team. So he's got the potential to fill in, and I think he gets his role here. I mean, what would you say? He's been with 3 teams in the last 3 years.
Yeah, he spoke on that. Your former teammate, Joe Theismann, was here. Do you believe that Joe Theismann was here?
Yeah, I believe that.
He's here every day.
He was still worried about Haskins getting that number 7. No, not that he was worried. I don't want to characterize that way. Joe was very gracious.
You want to make sure that jersey was still clean. But Keenum talked to Theismann, and you're going to see these videos during the preseason telecasts on NBC4 and NBC Sports Washington. But Joe T asked him about all these stops along the way and how it's made him a better quarterback. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I definitely think that your past, your history, what you've been through, experiences that you've had, really make you who you are. So I definitely have taken every little thing that I've learned from coaches. I've had a lot of great coaches too, from college even, throughout my 8 years now in the NFL, and I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning a lot. We've got great coaches here, with the Skins, and Coach Gruden, all those guys in the offensive staff, are great. I've learned a lot of football here with the Redskins.
From listening to that, Larry, what it tells me is that he's got an open mind, and he's got a mind that's kind of like flypaper. Obviously, he goes someplace, and things stick in his brain, and as I said, he's learning. And I think for me personally, when I switched teams from coming to the Jets down here, it's kind of finding your place. And, of course, I wasn't a quarterback. I think quarterbacks are a different position because, to a certain extent, they look at you as potentially as a leader type of person.
Coach on the field type of thing.
Yeah, a little bit. And so I can't, for me to be kind of like, an everyday, well, I don't want to say every day, but an every down type of, I guess you'd say a blue collar player as opposed to the white collar player. That's what I think you'd have to call a quarterback. It is a little different. And it's interesting because, I think that he gets that, and he has picked up a lot of stuff from everywhere he's been. His biggest challenge will be getting comfortable in Coach Gruden's system. Once he gets that, and you got to figure a guy now that's been with his third team in 3 years, he's probably kind of adapting a muscle that allows him to pick this stuff up a little bit quicker than, say, some guy that all of a sudden has been someplace for 6 years, 7 years, and all of a sudden he finds himself in another place. That, I will say, was different for me because with the Jets, their numbering system was even to the right and odd to the left. And down here, it was just the opposite. It was odd was to the right and even offensively speaking. And I'll always know, and I always thought of this, and I never did find the answer out for that, but I believe, honestly, that George Allen was a defensive coach, and you know, he loved his defense so much that he made it easier for them than he did for his offense. Because, you know, you think of it, I would think, naturally speaking, you think even would be even numbers to the right and odd would be to the left, because that's the way most of us think. I never did get to the bottom of that, but that would be my belief that old George, he had it up to, let's make it simple for my guys. And
Keep
you
it
guys,
simple.
Besides, we were supposed to just go 3 and out and not fumble or throw an interception. That was the way it was supposed to
Riggo,
work.
I'll tell you what, before we take this do this quick read, and it was spent Friday morning. You know, we got these big monitors out here. You've seen the monitors, and guess what was on last week? Your Super Bowl.
The whole time? They played the whole game?
They played the whole game. And it was very odd. After your 4th and 1 run, to put the Redskins in that position to win, I think maybe there was another field goal that might have been connected by Miami, right?
Yep.
So the last 3 minutes of the ball game.
No, Miami didn't score after that.
What was the final score of that game?
It was 27-17.
27.
And they were up 17-13.
Okay, yeah. So your run made it 27.
Made it 20-17.
20-17. So after your run, the camera was on Mark Mosley half the time.
But he had his hair just done the day
His
before.
hair was beautiful.
Mose was flowing in that California breeze.
He had 2 towels hanging
Right.
from his belt in case his hands got wet, and
Wait a second.
sweatbands.
He had sweatbands, and he had gloves.
And gloves.
And gloves.
For a kicker
I've always said
in
this.
California.
I love Mo's style, you know, and he's right. He was like Fernando Lamas. It's better to look good than to feel good. Because you know right away, if Mose has got to touch the ball with his hands, something has gone dreadfully wrong.
Sweatbands and
It is
gloves.
bad. It's
And he's a
Mayday,
kicker.
Mayday, Mayday.
Oh, man. The Times of Money Scratchers from the Virginia Lottery offer excitement multiplied at price points from $1 to $30, from 2 times the money and its top prize of $4,000 to 100 times the money and the top prize of $7 million. That's right, $7 million. These games offer you the chance to win big. The game also features multipliers, which means the chance to multiply your winnings. Take a second. Consider what multiplying the good things in life would mean. Okay, now that you've considered that, think about money multiplied. Multiply the good things today by asking about the Times of Money Scratchers at your lottery retailer. John?
All right, well, listen, you've heard me telling you about O'Connor Plumbing and their ability to work with you as far as financing special things that you may want to do in your house. You know, you can get a hold of them at 1-833-RIGGO-44. Let me tell you about something they're going to do at my house tomorrow. They're actually going to put in a water filtration system that is going to take the chlorine out of the water, which most people don't realize gives it a bad taste and smell. Go to your local swimming pool, drink a little of that water if you think. Now, granted, there's not as much chlorine in the water that's come. This is city water now. I'm not talking about if you're on a well. If you have city water, you got chlorine in it. It does a couple of things. One, obviously the taste. It changes the way it tastes. It also changes the way your food tastes if you cook with water.
Right.
And maybe one thing that nobody really knows, your skin. Chlorine is absorbed through the skin 24 times faster than if you actually drink the water. So the point being here, chlorine is used as a pesticide. It's actually a toxic element. In the right amounts, like a lot of things, it's okay for you. But why take a chance? Why not get your water all cleaned up and make yourself a lot more whole at home? And so, like I said, I'm having this done tomorrow. O'Connor Plumbing's coming out. Fred will be there probably about 8:30 in the morning, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to change the way we do things over at the Riggins household. 1-833-RIGGO-44.
Like the Fountain of Youth.
It might be, and who knows? I might come back next week and I'll be looking like I'm getting ready to fight Joe Frazier. I don't
hope
know.
so. What's that number again?
1-833-RIGGO-44.
Ladies and gentlemen, stand back and watch the Phoenix rise from the ashes.
Stand back. It's Riggo the Diesel.
Okay, here we've got a couple of things because there's a guy that's kind of emerging here on the team. We're going to play a couple of things here as really the guy on defense. Who knows? He may be running the whole team before you know it.
Right.
Jonathan Allen. I mean, he is that guy, right, Larry?
Yeah.
I mean, you saw it last year a little bit when there were some things going on, and he's kind of a guy I think that people go to, particularly the reporters, when something happens. And he said it last week when Foster went down. He said, "Hey, you know what? We got to absorb that. Just got to out, do our jobs, and move on." And and he gets it. That's the way football operates.
Not a big fan of doing the media, but when he talks, people listen. I think you know who he reminds me of? Dave Butts. Reminds me of Dave Butts because he's an all-pro player. Doesn't say a whole lot, but he's got a lot of respect in the locker room. When you say Dave Butts was a respected guy in the locker room,
and you're right. He hardly said a word.
Did he really search for roadkill to run over. That's a story I've heard so many times that he and Theismann would search for a roadkill to run over on the way to the game. Yeah.
I was with him one day.
Something fresh to run over.
I was with him one day when he did it. And, the weirdest thing is I actually made him let me out, and I called a cab because I don't want to ride with a guy that does that. He had this strange look came over his face. No, I rode with him to the game. But you got to admit, that's kind of a weird hobby to run over dead possums and
squirrels.
I don't think – I should have said, Dave, do you run over dead skunks when you see them? Because I'm telling you what, that's the challenge. You run over a skunk, you're going to have the skunk with you for a while.
Yeah, but, I think Theismann might have told me that they found something that had been run over, and they put it in the freezer. And they made sure that it was in the path. They went down and they knew the path that he was going to take to pick it. So he knew.
They set him up.
They set him up so he'd actually know that he could run over something. And it was a frozen squirrel that they had found the night before.
Thank God it was a squirrel, not a groundhog.
Yeah.
A frozen groundhog, they could have had an accident. That blowout, something like that. That's a lump to run over. It's like running over a brick.
That would be.
Or, a cement block. You think about it. That damn thing was frozen. Could have been rough.
I don't even know if that's true, but it's true. He used to go run over roadkill, I guess. So anyway.
Jonathan Allen.
Jonathan Allen, not sure if he likes running over roadkill, but he told Joe Theismann in one of these interviews about his role last season and how it really morphed. Did he force it? Was it kind of something that happened naturally? Here's what John had to say.
Honestly, a little of both, and not because I looked at the football team. I just looked at myself, and I just tried to lead by example. I didn't really try to speak as much. I mean, sometimes if it happened, but I just try to lead by example because you can never have too many leaders by example on a football team. So I try to do what I can to help this team win, and if people view me as a leader, so be it.
Did he say you can never have too many leaders?
I think he said that.
Leaders by example on the field.
Well, that's the key element right there.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, though. That's not good. Yeah,
exactly. And too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right?
That's another way of putting it.
That's an old hackneyed expression.
Another cliche that is those appropriate for the occasion. Now, also, how about this surprising statement? When Theismann asked him about all these Alabama players being on the team and how good that must feel, Jonathan Allen had a surprising answer.
It feels good. I feel like people put a little bit too much emphasis on that because, I've played with Matt Ioannidis just as long as I've played with Landon Collins. So, it's definitely good because I know what kind of players we're getting out of guys coming from Bama. But at the same time, I love Mason. I love Matt Ioannidis. I love everybody that we have on this team right now. And just having the Bama guys makes it that much more better, but I don't value them over the guys we've had previously.
Yeah, you know what? He gets it. Let's face it. It's fine, I'm sure, if some of the teammates come there. Who's to say that he was great friends with some of the guys that show up?
Right.
It really gets down to it's chemistry, and everything changes. And this is the NFL. It's not NCAA. You come up here, your object is to win football games. You get a Matt Ioannidis that's lined up on the other side of the ball, and then you realize that, this guy can play football, and you have a tremendous amount of respect for that. There's no reason that you're kind of wishing to yourself, oh, gosh, I wish he was from Alabama so I could be. I don't think it's the way it works, and certainly not with him anyway. He's here to win football games, and he doesn't care who's out there. We go in here, and we play the football game on Sunday, and if you can do your job, you're with me. If you can't, get somebody else in here. And that means if you're from Alabama, former teammate, and you can't do your job, get over on the sidelines, get somebody in here. I think that's what I hear him saying.
And that's leadership.
What's that?
I think
that's right. Exactly.
Gabe is going to sit in here. Gabe Henderson's going to come in. You have a couple topics of discussion. Donovan McNabb, Hall of Famer. That is not an easy one for me to answer. I think end of the day, I'd rather have a little time to discuss that with you.
Yeah, and you're one of those guys that vote.
Yes, and I know Donovan. I think he's a great guy. Bill Buckner unfairly lived in infamy, without a doubt.
He did, didn't he?
He really did. Suffered. And Bart Starr, 5 NFL championships, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, a 17th round draft pick. Now, you know what that translates to these days?
No.
Because there was 12 teams back then.
Is that right?
Yes. So about 206, 207, it's about a 6th round pick. He's a 6th round pick. Like who?
Okay.
Tom Brady.
Like Tom Brady.
Helping people improve their lives is what should drive business. That's the belief at Koch Industries, which employs more than 65,000 people across America. The team at Koch works together to meet the world's most changing needs in transportation, medical care, water filtration, household goods, energy-efficient building products, and everyday technologies, all while consuming fewer resources. See the innovations firsthand at kochindustries.com.
Have you heard about Creighton Farms, the private club community that's home to the Redskins? Creighton Farms is just 20 minutes from Dulles, but a world away. On top of its award-winning Jack Nicklaus signature golf course, pools, tennis courts, and other resort-style amenities, you'll find custom homes and villas that are simply extraordinary, starting at $1.5 million. For property and legal information, visit CreightonFarms.com, or, better yet, visit Creighton Farms.
If you have atrial fibrillation, you know it can be difficult to treat successfully. Innova Heart and Vascular Institute in Fairfax is a leader in AFib treatment using specialized technology and expertise. This helps to more precisely target and treat rhythm irregularities that others could miss, helping to restore your heartbeat to normal. Give your heart the benefit of care. Visit innovaheart.org/AFib to learn more and to find an Innova physician. Innova. Join the future of health.
Gearing up for game day? Your local Safeway has everything you need for the perfect tailgating or home gating party. Pick up all your favorites like wings, chips and dips, brats, burgers, beverages, and pizza. Stop by the deli to pick up fresh fried chicken or the produce department for a variety of party trays. Head on over to your local Safeway and pick up everyone's favorites. Safeway, the official supermarket of the Washington Redskins.
Don, when he walked, he had a little bop to him. And besides that, he had the booty out there. They nicknamed him Chocolate Chip.
Story time with Riggo.
It is, and Gabe Henderson sitting in right now for Larry, who just had to go to a meeting. We ran over a little bit, a few difficulties before we got started, a few technical, but I'm always glad to see Gabe. Gabe, how you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
You sitting in here, I'm not doing so well, really. But right now, I'm fine. But when we get done with this, it's going to be a little bit of a chore to get out to the car. But I'll deal with that when it happens. So, as Larry said, a couple things going on here. One of the all-time NFL greats passed away over the weekend. I don't know. You're young enough that you probably don't have a real appreciation for Bart Starr. And I have to say this, and I hate to, that I'm not that young, and I knew of the Green Bay Packers, but I fell into an interesting slot, you might say, of where I grew up out in northeast Kansas. We only got one TV station out there. I should say, only one network, CBS.
Right.
And it was WIBW Channel 13 out of Topeka, Kansas. And when I was growing up, the only football game that we got was the St. Louis Cardinals. And, I don't want to, I'll just tell it the way it is. They were terrible.
Yeah.
I didn't really pay much attention to it. So the NFL at that era of my life, the late 50s when the Packers were winning all these championships in the early 60s, kind of went over my head. But somehow you knew once you learned a little bit more about football. And he was just retiring, I think, Starr was, when I came into the league. I came in 71, and I think he may have played 69, 70, and then that was his last year. But clearly, I mean, his body of work speaks for itself. But, and that was back in the day. It's completely different. I mean, I don't even know how you compare guys today with guys of yesteryear, because we're all they're playing completely different games. Even the game that they played then was even different. A little bit of change had happened when I got into the league, say 10 years later. Well, actually, it was tail end of his. So there's been a little bit of the game has evolved somewhat over all these last 50 years. But still, you got to say, a guy that was on 5 championship football teams obviously knew something was going on. But at the same time, I bet there were games where Bart Starr didn't throw the ball 15, 20 times at the most. I mean, he had what's his name? Jimmy Taylor was his fullback, and he had the golden boy, Paul Hornung, who, I never got this, but Paul Hornung won the Heisman Trophy at Notre Dame as a quarterback. And then he, obviously he goes to Green Bay and what do you call it? Lombardi makes you a halfback out of him and a kicker. So kind of an interesting deal. But yeah, I'd met Bart Starr a couple of times, and his wife Cherry, and he certainly was a class act. A guy that got it, unlike me. He was an adult. Yeah. I always felt like I was around an adult when I was around Bart Starr.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Of course, my knowledge of him isn't as great, other than the Ice Bowl and his performance then. But still, I mean, 5 Super Bowl championships, that speaks for itself. So I mean, he's a legend. Unfortunate news, but he's going to be missed.
Yeah, you talk about the Ice Bowl, and I was just thinking about that, and I can still remember that game vaguely, but I don't know if I watched it because I was a senior. I would have been a freshman in college. It was in December 31st, 1967. Yep. So I'd have been at KU. We'd have been on spring break, or not spring break, Christmas break. No, we'd have been on Christmas break. Okay. Yeah, and I don't remember. Something makes me think I did see it, but obviously you've seen the tape or the film over over the years, but the first 2 plays, I think it was a 3rd down, if I'm not mistaken, they got stuffed. At least this is what I read yesterday, in the, what do you call it, his obituary.
Yep.
And so I guess Starr just winged this. He decided that he would get in and make, I don't know if he told Jerry Kramer, because that's the guy he got behind. Jerry Kramer, the field is frozen. By that time, the field was frozen solid, minus 15. It's one of the coldest games ever played. I think one of the second coldest games was in Cincinnati. San Diego went there with a really hell of a team and got beat there in 1980 or 81 in the playoff game. But it was down around a minus 12 or something like that. But anyway, the ground was so frozen that Jerry Kramer got the better traction. I think he got underneath Jethro Pugh and just got just enough push. And
Bob Lilly.
It was Bob Lilly?
It was.
And got enough of a push on him or got him off to the side, and Starr slipped in for the touchdown. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of funny, but, you wonder if that – in that era, that kind of changed the fortunes of Green Bay, not unlike the pass that Joe Montana made to Dwight Clark that beat the Cowboys. Another where the Cowboys were right there knocking on the door. It's funny how confidence is what the game's all about.
Yep.
And you lose it in those moments, and it's hard to get it back. So, good here to Bart Starr. Another guy, as Larry was mentioned, Bill Buckner, first baseman, great player, played for 22 seasons. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And really, I didn't know who Bill Buckner was, except that he had won the batting title once, but I didn't really follow baseball. And I'm like everybody else. The only thing I remember him for, and you almost, to this day, I feel so badly about it, but it doesn't make any difference now, is that he's known for an error that let the Mets tie or win the game that went into the second or the final 7th game of the series, and they end up losing the whole deal. The worst part of that is, and I get it and I don't get it, because it's like everybody kind of forgets that we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
But I read this about that the fans in Boston, because of the curse of the Bambino, had lasted so long, and they saw this was their moment in time where they were going to finally shed that,
right.
And it disappeared. It was, it wasn't going to happen. That they made life miserable for Bill Buckner. Is it Buckner? Buckner.
Buckner.
Yeah, Buckner. I don't know where I get Buckner from. Anyway, they made life so miserable for him in because he decided to retire and live in Massachusetts. Then he had to pack his family up, and I think he either moved to Idaho or Montana or something like that. He got the hell out to where nobody knew who he was. So you got to feel like that was a pretty heavy sentence that got laid on him for a mistake. But I guess at this level, you got to kind of. You would never want to think that. If I make a mistake, I'm going to be vilified for the rest of my life. You can't be thinking thoughts like that.
Well, it gets back to Bart Starr, the iconic Ice Bowl. You talked about Dwight Clark and Joe Montana, the catch. Your 4th and 1 run. What if you had fumbled or gotten stuck?
It's those moments.
It's true. There's no doubt about that. And I don't think I haven't thought. But if I'd have got the first down, that was one thing, right? And it'd been okay, and then who knows what happened. But the fact you scored a touchdown, and you can see it and that's what's really weird, too, about how plays like that completely change the complexion of everything. Because I think the Mets probably was getting ready to capitulate. But the score was tied. That's what's kind of interesting. They kind of let it start to get out of control. But I know that from looking at some of that stuff, you see guys on the Miami sidelines that Todd's talking about that run back in the 1983 Super Bowl 17. You just kind of see them sag.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is I tell people that we had been dominating the Dolphins pretty much all day. Certainly defensively and offensively, we'd been running the ball well. They just had more points than we did. Right. And I think that at that point, they kind of knew that they weren't probably going to get any more points. And the fact that we went ahead, they kind of figured that they were doomed.
It's that one play. That one play just deflates an entire team. And once you have, your run, for example, you're right on the door. Everybody, the fans know that the moment is going to happen. It's just the fact of like when. And when that moment happens, it's like a domino effect. So, the defense, they're gassed. They feel it. And then once the offense comes out in the field, it's more pressure on them. So looking back at that play, Bill Buckner. Buckner.
I got you saying it now.
Yeah. So that moment, it was just the fact that it was, a World Series game. So many things on the line. The Boston Red Sox, you know how crazy those fans are and how not crazy, but how passionate those fans are. So the fact that it happened during that moment with so much at stake, like you said, it's unfortunate that he's going to be remembered by that. But
But
thing.
I think he's finally, expiated his sins in the town, because I think he did. Well, at least he went back, and I don't know if he moved back there or not. But he never would go back for anything really. But it's the tail end there. I guess several years back they introduced one of the teams, and they had him before the game, and it's like all of a sudden. But I'm telling you, you think about it, that took him probably 20, 25, 30 years to work his way through that psychologically. You always thought about it. It's easy, because it wasn't your problem to go, Bill Buckner, but you really don't realize exactly how much pain that guy went through all those years.
For a guy that played 22 seasons, 22.
Known for one play.
And he was a heck of a contact hitter.
As they say, a borderline Hall of Fame guy.
Yeah, and he never struck out 3 times in a game in 22 seasons.
Wow.
Never struck out only twice ever. So yesterday in the major league, 16 guys struck out 3 times or more.
Was Bryce Harper one of those guys?
And one correction, the steel trap Riggo, I should have known. The block in the Ice Bowl was on Jethro Pugh.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Speaking of almost Hall of Fame, Donovan McNabb. I don't know Donovan particularly well, although he was a little brusque with me when I was doing the sideline reporting for Westwood One. He was just kind of like, who are you?
Yeah.
But, so, he's kind of convinced that he's the best thing that came down the road, which is good for him. You got to have confidence. I just said that. But I got to say this. I don't know if he does himself any good by basically claiming that he should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it kind of, I don't know. It's like I think you draw negative attention when you do that. But I don't know what he's trying to accomplish, because I don't think you're going to change the minds of the guys that do the voting by making these claims. But at the same time, I'm thinking you could run the risk of alienating.
For sure.
Wouldn't you?
Anytime you self-promote yourself to
at that
level to the Hall of Fame, people, like you said, people are going to alienate you. They're going to, stand away from him, because it's like, okay, this guy he's doing a little too much. I mean, his numbers do say a lot, but personality-wise, it's like, okay, like we'll get to that point when that time comes. But right now, there's been guys that's been better than him that's been in there that's already inducted into the Hall of Fame. Of course, Donovan McNabb, he's got 30,000 passing yards over his career, like 5 NFC championships. Only one Super Bowl. Not 5 NFC championships. He's been to 5 NFC championship games. Only one Super Bowl where he lost to the Patriots that year. But other than that, the stats speak for itself. It's just on that teeter. It's like, has he done enough? And now that he's saying, okay, I've done enough. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me. It's like, okay, we get it, Don.
Yeah. We're aware of it, and you bring up a great point there. I think is that when you look, if you're clever about it, and I don't think just going out there and basically saying I should be in the Hall. I don't know how he said it. Maybe he did do it in a jocular way. I don't have any. If he did, then more power to him. Because if you're kind of teasing and that kind of thing, but the words themselves, the way they come out, it makes it sound like he was kind of just making a like poking somebody in the chest, saying, "Hey, these are the facts right here. Deal with it."
And what year did he retire? I think 2011 somewhere.
Where did he go when he left here? Did he go to another team?
Vikings, I believe.
That's right. It was
the Vikings.
Minnesota.
So he was here for a year, and the Vikings for another year. So
I think so.
It kind of went downhill. But I mean, like I said, over 30,000 passing yards. I mean, I think there's only 3 quarterbacks. John Elway is one of those quarterbacks that can say that they threw for that many yards. So he does have an argument. He does have a case when it comes to that. However, when it comes to self-promoting, like we just talked about, it's going to be tough.
It will. Anyway, I think that wraps it up for this week's episode number 40. We'll see you next week for 41. Thank you for joining us.